Hi, and welcome to this demonstration where we're going to go through our managed solution, which focuses on developer and platform accelerator services. Another way to look at this is platform engineering as a service in order to provide that developer acceleration. And we partner with a number of key vendors, so Harness, GitHub, ServiceNow, AWS, Azure, and Terraform. And you'll see some demos here which cover off on those various vendors. With that, what are we trying to do here? Well, first of all, our goal at Ahead in our Managed Solutions group is to enable customers to deliver innovation velocity without sacrificing some of the core concerns that IT has always had: control, reliability, governance, quality, security, efficiency, to name a few. And our goal is to accelerate that developer experience, but put all these core ingredients in place to ensure that they can deploy in a safe and reliable way. So if we look at the developer productivity challenges that lead us here, well, developers want to write code. They want to upload to their code repository, build their artifacts, test and release, deploy to non-prod, then eventually to production. And at the same time, then we're seeing various teams now form depending on your organization, but people focused on SRE, platform engineering, security, DevOps, etc. They're saying, hey, fix these issues that you've created. And you pass those over to engineering and they're like, hey, I wish I knew this earlier and then I could have taken action. And so ultimately, this results in reduced dev productivity, reduced velocity, and increased risk because people can't get things moving to the finish line as fast as possible. That's from a developer viewpoint, but we also need to look at it from the platform challenge viewpoint as well. Infrastructure is still needed. Developers need Kubernetes infrastructure, cloud infrastructure services, and maybe they're stuck in a prioritization queue where they're waiting for cloud engineering, for example. Developer wants to just start writing code and needs their tools integrated, but they need a tool chain integrated now with all of the various infrastructure components. And IT and security are saying, hey, I need these services deployed with standards. And what results is a request that goes in, it's active for a while, then people are waiting, maybe it's emailed, maybe a ticket's being passed around, all the way to an environment being delivered. And this can take, in some cases, 20 to 40 days and ultimately results in reduced developer productivity. But also there's a lot of IT tasks that can be automated to be more efficient as well. So what is our prescriptive approach at Ahead? Well, we've got 5 core areas built around over 500 unique pieces of code accelerators that we've built to accelerate the adoption of platform engineering and enable the developers. We have a self-service portal supporting multiple personas from app dev to infrastructure. We have CI/CD acceleration, so templatized pipelines to accelerate CI, CD, and security test orchestration. Platform acceleration, a significant number of infrastructure as code modules to facilitate deployments on a multitude of platforms, whether that's AWS, Azure, or on-premises. Developer acceleration, so that's packaged app frameworks, and we'll do a demo of one of those today, and accelerators to meet the needs of the teams, and these can be further customized for each individual developer team. And last, but certainly not least, security and policy as code. Let's make sure throughout the entire process we enforce security and governance policies in the workflow itself. Well, what are all these accelerators that we have? We divide them into 3 core areas. Our platform accelerators are all around making the platform like AWS work effectively and quickly. So we have a significant amount of infrastructure as code and patterns for all the common AWS services. We have things like the Packer IaaS image factory for building those EC2 images at scale and much more quickly. The policy as code templates I mentioned, desired state config templates like Ansible code that we have, cloud cost management templates for BI dashboards that teams often want, etc., going down to like observability and security. In CI/CD, not only can we stamp out the platform infrastructure automatically, but now we can stamp out the pipelines automatically. So that includes pipeline accelerators that we can drop in, code-in standards guidelines that everybody needs to adhere to, AWS container infrastructure, Azure container infrastructure that gets glued into these pipelines, and last but certainly not least, a trusted container factory. So a secure container factory that's approved by security with all appropriate scan-in included in that pipeline. Last but not least, developer accelerators. These focus now on the languages that developers are using. So iOS pipelines, Android pipelines, Spring Boot, React, Python, Angular, Redshift, DynamoDB, etc. And there's many more, but this is just a taste of what's in our accelerator toolkit. With that, before we jump into the demo, what are the benefits of doing all of this? Well, one, a self-service experience. So app and infra teams can request the services they need on demand so we can deliver innovation faster. Improved quality for both app and platform by minimizing outage risk, detecting and resolving issues earlier before they intensify. Simplicity makes maintenance and setup much more easier. We can drop this in very quickly and we can maintain it. This isn't a 6 to 9 month effort to figure this all out. We can drop it in within a couple of weeks. Enhance security posture by integrating scanning and reducing that feedback loop. Reducing deployment times just by the use of automating everything in this process. And last but not least, again, governance and guardrails provide deployment confidence so the teams can move faster. But with that, let's show you some of this in action in our demo environment. Well, here we are in our self-service catalog. This one is built upon ServiceNow, and this is something we can drop into any ServiceNow environment. The alternative is one built on Backstage. Either way, same functionality would apply. In this case, you can see some popular items. We have a number in here, everything from creating a backend service in Go with CI/CD pipelines, which we're going to show you shortly, to deploying new Kubernetes infrastructure, whether that's on AWS or elsewhere, EC2 instances for Windows and Linux, entire AWS landing zones if required as well. But we can go in and select one of these, and let's choose to create a new backend service in Go with CI/CD pipelines. And this is going to deploy and clone a Git repo, get it all ready for us, and integrate everything into Harness CI/CD for us. So if we look further down here, there's some questions we need to ask to get this going. So first question, let's get the business unit in there. So the business unit, perhaps for an airline company, we want to do air weight and balance. So we'll call it AWB, for example. We'll put AWB as the project description, air weight and balance. Project slug we'll call AWB, and then call it AWB image for the container image name. So all this is going to do, again, build a pipeline. It's going to need these variables that go into Harness to build the CI/CD pipeline. So we'll hit order now and then check out. And that's going to send that API call over from the ServiceNow, in this case, over to Harness. And you'll see trigger pipelines. That hasn't started just yet. It'll take a minute or so for ServiceNow to kick that off, if not that long even. And then you can click in here as well and see the status as everything is going through. So we'll refresh here in a second, see if we've got any progress. And there you can see on the top right, now it shows that it's creating the GitHub repository. So I'll refresh again. As you can see, it's now creating the GitHub repository starting. It shows there that Harness has uninitialized the GitHub repository, and you can link to that repo. So I can click straight in there and it will take me to that repo, but it's uninitialized. But you can see it up here. It's created it in our sandbox, AWB-AWB. And so we'll go in there. That's AWB-AWB, air weight and balance for the air weight and balance team. And if I go back, you can also go into Harness now and look at the projects that we have. So if we go into the Harness projects and we look at some of the core utilities here. So if I expand out the platform engineering group here, we've got the development accelerators, and I go into our starter kit for Go. So if I go into pipelines, you'll see the Go project creator is running, and this is it running here. And it started 2 minutes ago and is basically executing. Now that is a workflow inside Harness that is creating additional pipelines inside of Harness for the end user. So we're using Harness as an orchestrator. It's a pipeline orchestrator, and then it's creating new pipelines for the end user. So if I go back here into the way we organize while that's going on, if I click on my projects here, you'll see we have a number of organizations. Probably easier to view them like this in the project list view. And I can expand out here and say, okay, I want to look at our CI sandbox and see what we have here. So if I go into Go POC and pipelines, very soon we're going to see an air, weight, and balance pipeline appear here as well. If I go back to ServiceNow while this is all going on and refresh here, if I go back and back again here, we can see it's given us progress. So as Harness is finishing steps, it's updating ServiceNow to state where everything is at. So you can see here we're at creating Harness resources. That's started, that's completed. And now again, if I start to go over to the repository and refresh, we should start to see, yep, AWB there. And we should start to see some code populating here shortly, as well as these pipelines continue on. So we can look through here and we can click on the console view and we can see where everything is going. So I'm going to let it run through, and I'll fast forward here for a second to let everything complete and then show you where everything is at. Okay, we'll interrupt here to show you where we're at. And it's going through test-in phase now, unit tests, race detector, and code coverage. So those have been included in the pipeline that we've created here to get the Go pipeline up and running. And while we look at this, I can also go back to the GitHub repository, and you can see now that all of the code is starting to populate in there. So the whole point of this is to set everything up, all the code, all these items that again could take days, if not weeks, to be completed as you hand over tickets between teams. So we'll go back to this workflow and we'll continue on here and come back when it's a bit further along. All right, we reached another good breakpoint here. So the pipeline should be ready, and now we can initialize the Go build. So if I go over to the pipeline section here and refresh, we should see that additional pipeline is now present. So you can see it there, AWB, CI, AWB. And you can see over here, it's actually initializing that pipeline. So not only has it built the pipeline, in fact, if I click in here, I can see the pipeline that's been built for that user, but I can actually go back and look at the execution that's happening in there now, which was initiated via Harness itself, which in turn was initiated via ServiceNow. So at this point, we're pretty much complete from the request. Once this is basically just running through and making sure it does an initial build, builds the container, and gets it up into the container registry. And take a minute again to think about that. It's built the clone the Git repo. It's got all the code there. We've got the container registry configured, all the keys, all the secrets, all the code scanning. Everything is integrated as we go through, and we're able to use these accelerators to drop in, whether it's Go, React, whatever the main language is, and perhaps you want infrastructure, Kubernetes stood up as well. We can tie all those things together and present them in a self-service way, already secure with trusted container factories when needed. Going back to ServiceNow, if we refresh on here, we can also see that the status continues to be updated. So now we have a link to the repo, but also the CI/CD pipeline and additional artifacts as we need to. And details of our request are on the right-hand side as well. Now with that, let me take a minute just to show you the organization around instantiating platform engineering. So one of the things we have is the Harness Platform Engineering Kit. And this is essentially what we leverage to get everything up and running for you. And just to skim through a few of these, there's significant amounts of utilities, infrastructure as code, Terraform files, YAML files, etc. And we can certainly go through these in a full demo with you. But if you look at it from a Harness perspective, and I know I showed a few pipelines there, I'm going to go to the project view and let's look at the organization view of all the projects first of all. So you can see, this is all our organizations in our demo account here. But one of the things we first do is instantiate platform engineering. This is going to give you all the utilities, the golden image factory, the delegate factory for Harness, core utilities, infrastructure provisioners, golden image factory, delegate factory, and a number of our customers like to have a pet projects option as well. In addition to that, then we have the development and platform accelerators, and this is where we can put in the starter kit for Go, for example. So if I go back to the pipelines here, we'll see that Go Project Creator, that's the pipeline we were instantiating. I had a couple things running in parallel when I was showing you the demo here, but you can see I've run a couple of these, one 26 minutes ago, one 17 minutes ago, and that's basically what's ingesting from ServiceNow and executing. And that in turn is basically going ahead. If I go back to my projects here at the top, so if we go back to projects and I go to another organization now, the CI sandbox for testing, and that now in the Go POC that we're doing, pipelines, you can see we've got 3 pipelines there. These have all been instantiated via ServiceNow's in the bag one for a little bit, and the await and balance one is the one we just requested as well, but exactly the same process there. The key thing going back to projects is making sure that you have a good instantiation of platform engineering from the get-go. And that also includes other artifacts. So we have our full code management guide that we bring as well to tell everybody the rules around semantic versioning, checking in code, code scanning, branching strategies, all of those components. And tying all this together is what allows us to get this acceleration and get platform engineering up and running more quickly. And this is ultimately a core skill now, especially for AWS engineers that need to accelerate the adoption of services, get their developers moving quickly, get these services up and running in a highly secure way, fully integrated into the pipeline. This is where we suggest people spend their time and get trained up very quickly. And at Ahead, we obviously have a number of services to help teach people to do it or help do it for you if you don't have the capability in-house. But with that, I think it's an exciting time, exciting transformation going on in the space, and look forward to further conversations. Thank you.